The basic idea of the startup manual that everyone has hopefully on hand is to sort of set out all of the key things that a startup founder needs to think about when going on a startup journey from a legal perspective. Unfortunately, the legal side of the startup journey is one of the least interesting aspects of it, so it's probably not really looked at as much as it necessarily should be. So the manual is really designed to really give you guys something that you can kind of go back to if you've got questions and so on and so forth. What we wanted to do with the panel, though, was to get a group of people who are involved in the startup ecosystem to talk through some of the key inflection points in the startup journey, particularly at this sort of early stage, which is why we have Gretta representing the, founder perspective, and then we have Oscar and Eloise representing the investor perspective. And so what we'll do is go through some of the kind of key things that you really need to think about from, yes, a legal perspective, but more importantly from a just building a business perspective. We'll have about 45 minutes of sort of talk about that, and hopefully 15 minutes of questions at the end. So if you've got questions, really remember them, so we will need questions at the end. Before we start, each of our panellists will introduce themselves, so do you want to kind of start, Gretta? Go, Gretta.
Okay. We're good? Noise-wise? Yeah, okay, that's better. Gretta Van Riel. I've founded 5 different startups over the last 5 years. My first startup is called Skinny Me Tea. It's a detox tea company. It grew very, very quickly from when I started it when I was 22 in 2012, and we grew from 0 to 30,000 orders a month in under 6 months. And also, like, if it's easier to understand monetarily, we grew from $0 a month to $600,000 US a month in under 6 months. So that was kind of the thing that catapulted the growth of my other startups. I kind of realised that owning an e-commerce business, you learn a lot of repeatable skills, and once you have an audience and once you have that skill set, it is a repeatable framework and you can do it kind of over and over, and that has been what's happened with my other e-commerce startups, and now my marketing technology startup, which is called Hey, like hello, and that is the company that we got venture capital investment in from Blackbird here. And Hey is basically an influencer relationship management platform. So the way that we grew my first e-commerce startups was mostly through influencer marketing, which, if anybody hasn't heard of, is basically when you pay a person with a large social following to access their audience to advertise your product. So basically, the way that we grew Skinny Me Tea was by sending out packs of tea to girls with over 1,000 followers on Instagram. They would then post and we would achieve sales off the back of that post. So it was turning the growth that I had built within my startups and turning the way that I built my startups into kind of a software that other people can use to grow as well. So that's my intro.
Not nearly as impressive a story as
Oh.
you, but my background is I co-founded a social enterprise when I was back in uni and grew that into a self-sustaining company of about $500,000 of revenue in the education space here in Victoria, and really got involved and interested in the entrepreneur ecosystem back then. I then worked in corporate finance for long enough to realise that I shouldn't own corporate finance. Got connected to Paul and Jim, who are the partners at Rampersand. It was a typical story of they were going to give me advice and they gave me a job instead. So I happily took that on and have been at Rampersand for 2.5 years now. So helped close their first fund, launch their second fund, launch our second fund, and have been the investment manager there at Rampersand. Yeah, where I am now. Short intro.
That's awesome. Hi everyone, thrilled to be here. Many of you in this cool space. My name's Oscar, and I'm the general manager and partner at Startmate. We're an early stage technology accelerator, started 7 years ago. We just kicked off in Melbourne 4 weeks ago. invested in 12 companies here in Melbourne. So we're midway through the program. It's chaos. It's beautiful chaos. Before that, I was working in San Francisco for 3 or 4 years at a data science startup. And then before that, I still am really into electric cars. And so there was an amazing electric car infrastructure startup actually out of California that had an office here in Melbourne called Better Place. And so that was a fantastic journey for 4 years. We raised just under $1 billion and went bankrupt. So a lot of really interesting lessons there. But yeah, really excited to be here with you all today and with these amazing people on the panel as well. So it's really cool.
All right, let's get into it. So I think I'm not sure how this was sort of pitched as an event, but I think it might have been talking about raising capital. And that's something that we find startup founders or people interested in the startup space all very, very keen on. How do you raise money? What sort of valuation should I get, so on and so forth. But before we even get into that, I think that there's a real thing that I see. Yes, we act for lots and lots of startups, and quite frankly, the vast majority of businesses that come to us should really not be looking necessarily to raise capital and are unlikely to ever raise capital. And that's not a bad thing, it just is what it is. So what I think would be interesting would be for Gretta, as a founder who has founded a startup that hasn't raised any external capital and also started one that has raised external capital, to take us through how you made those decisions, why you raised for why you didn't for the previous businesses, and then for Eloise and Oscar to kind of jump in and talk a bit about the volume of startups that they see coming to them and what makes an investable company from their perspective.
Yeah. So the decision to raise or not was definitely down to cash flow, obviously. With my physical product startups, they were cash flow positive quite quickly. I wouldn't start an e-commerce startup that wasn't. We basically went through kind of like a pre-sale during the week, and then I would fulfill orders on the weekend. It was such a startup. When I started Skinny Me Tea, I basically would get the orders during the week. I was working full-time in the city at the time, and I couldn't physically fulfill them on weeknights because I didn't have time once I got home from work and done all the customer service and the marketing. So then I'd get home, sell more tea, and then when it got to the weekend, it would be fulfilling the orders. So it was an accidental kind of pre-sale model. So we were cash flow positive from day one. We didn't have any stock when we started the company because I just had all the kind of raw ingredients. I would mix it up myself, then send it out. So it's been a huge transition from getting from that level of startup to now a TGA listed, technically a pharmaceutical brand. So from me mixing it in my kitchen to now being TGA listed and being manufactured in a TGA approved facility. For anyone that doesn't know, TGA is Therapeutic Goods Administration. So basically with Skinny Me Tea, the reason that we didn't need to raise any capital, and we were offered multiple times to have growth injections of capital throughout, but we had more money than I knew what to do with at the time. I wasn't a seasoned founder. I didn't know how you were supposed to be spending that money in order to grow. So I think there's a few different lessons obviously to be learned there. But basically the reason that we didn't raise capital for my e-commerce startups was because we didn't need to in terms of funding. But the reason that you would, even if you are cash flow positive, would obviously be that advisory team that would come along and the due diligence that you go through, to get your company into an investable state often speeds up a lot of the things that you should have been doing for years before. So when Hay raised capital from Blackbird, we had to get into a shape very, very quickly to be able to raise that capital. They kept, once we were going through due diligence, basically we realised all the holes in our company. And so it was a really great way to go from super startup stage to, kind of a mid-level startup organisationally very quickly. So I would always suggest that if you cannot raise capital financially, don't do it. Bootstrap until you can possibly, whenever an investor's entering, they're entering at a certain valuation of your company. The higher you can get that valuation before you get investment, the easier it's going to be, the less of your company equity you're going to have to give away. So basically, that's the reason that we didn't raise, and then the reason that we did for Hay is because it's a tech company. It was very software intensive. We had to grow and develop a lot of software before we were ready to go to market. It's not like we could pre-launch with nothing and be like, okay, we have this tool coming, so you pay now and you might get something in a year. We're not, Virgin spaceships or something. So
Cool.
That's
Good. All right. And so you guys obviously see hundreds, probably thousands of startups a year. Can you give, everyone a bit of a sense as to what are the characteristics of a startup that you might invest in, but not even that you might invest in, that a VC in general might invest in?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that can be a little bit underappreciated sometimes. I mean, a VC is looking for a return, and we're looking for typically a 10x return. So the first question we always ask ourselves is this physically possible? If you've got a business that's going after a market here in Australia, and in 5 years, the most revenue you can get, possibly if you got 50% of the market is 10 million, that's not going to be quite so interesting for us because it's just not going to get the amount of returns that we need. That's not to say it's not a bad business. Like if you can get to a business and you have $2 million in revenue, you own 100% of it, like that's an awesome freaking company. It just means that maybe VC funding isn't quite for you, because in the same way that bank debt has certain restrictions and certain obligations along with it, so does VC funding. Like we need to make that a sort of return for our investors. So I think the first thing is knowing how big your market is that you can attack, and that feasibly you can get the type of return that VCs are looking for is definitely the first question you need to ask yourself. I think also looking for the ability to scale that we need. Most of our fund, the average VC fund life is, call it 10 years, which means kind of go to woe with investments. They're looking for maybe 7 years. Different for different funds, different for how people think about it, but within that time they also need to see that 10x growth. And so you need to be a type of company that's able to scale at that sort of velocity. You should also need to be a founder who wants to scale to that size, at that speed, and everything that comes along with that. So I think being realistic around what we're looking for. I think the other bit is, VC funds are looking for something that is a little bit differentiated, that does have some defensibility around it. Every single fund has different mandates and different things they look at, but you've got to have some element of, this can be big, this can have an exit or some sort of something for the investor. And that can be different things for different funds. And
what do you
So can you give some context as to something that you wouldn't invest in?
So
You see a lot of?
something that we wouldn't invest in. I mean, at Rampersand, we're very unlikely to invest in something that is domestically focused, that's a copy, like a Me Too proposition from the US. I mean, that we find hard because, the Australian market, if you see something that's big in the US and you want to bring it to Australia, I mean, our market is a tiny, tiny, tiny bit the size of the US, and if a company's only just made it in the US and made it at a size that's really interesting, like it's unlikely you're going to do that in Australia. It's also like you've got so many competitive pressures from those big guys in the States coming over to Australia, and if you don't have anything differentiated, like it's hard for us really to get our heads around it and hard for us to get really, really excited about something like that. Something we would invest in is something that does have applications that's globally, something that's actually solving a problem that really exists and isn't just kind of a nice to have thing that, we could feasibly see, we can put some capital in, you guys can grow, you can get really big, you can do something really interesting. Is probably good. I hope that helps a little more solid.
Yeah.
How do you think about it?
Broadly we think about it in the same way at Blackbird. I think the Startmate perspective is quite interesting on this. So I really like this expression that success breeds ambition. And so if you think about the first year that the Atlassian guys started out, their goal was to make more money than they could earn working in the current job they had, which I think at the time was $45,000. And they were able to achieve that goal. Now, they had like a big they had some, big thoughts in where they wanted to actually take that business. But at the beginning, they had no idea that they were going to be able to actually achieve what they've been able to achieve. And so often when we're working with founders, particularly at the beginning of their journey in Startmate, so often we're the first check-in. So what does that mean? We're the first investor in their business, and we're writing roughly exactly a $75,000 check. And as they have that win, and then they have more wins over the sort of the 3, 4, 5 months that we're working with them, we just genuinely see them thinking deeply about why they're doing what they're doing and where they want to take it and how big their ambition. And one of the best things about the job is actually seeing their ambition grow. And so we do this amazing trip where the first week after we've made all the investments, we go to San Francisco. And it's a pretty epic week because, and there's a point to this story, right? We set up a bunch of meetings, about one every day, and there's some top venture firms over there, say Benchmark would be one of the standouts, for example. And then there's a number of other Australian founders that have done particularly well that have decided to locate half of their company in San Francisco and then maybe the other half here in, say, Melbourne or Sydney. Or maybe they've moved their entire business over there. And they're only like 2, 3, 4 years ahead of these folks that have been working on their business for like 3 to 6 months. And you're in the room and you realise they're exactly the same as you. All they are is like 2, 3 years ahead, and they've had some success that's led to them ratcheting up their ambition. And then they ask that fundamental question that you need to be able to answer for somebody like Rampersand or somebody like Blackbird to invest in you, and that is, after 5 years, will you be a business that will be making roughly $100 million in annual revenue? And if you have a plan that is logical to get to that and believable, and we're excited about it, and we're in. That's pretty much how it works. So, yeah.
Okay, cool, good. So before we get on to sort of growth and team sort of discussion, one thing, given this is a partially legal event, that would be interesting is, I think, for people to kind of know, to understand what are the things that they need to look out for when, for instance, they get a term sheet from a VC. Just broadly, what are the things that you really need to be focused on? And Gretta, in your experience, what are the things that that you focused on and around, I guess, that you did quite recently?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to start off maybe?
Yeah,
Sure. I mean,
do you want to go?
I've seen a million term sheets, both ones we've created and ones other people have created. I mean, largely, we're lucky here in Australia. Most of the players are really good, and we see not so many scary term sheets. The really things to look out for is like liquidity preferences when they are what we call participating liquidity preferences, which essentially means, like, as an investor, we might be able to get 3 times our money back before they get anything. And that can, I think, misalign, our view and my view definitely is it misaligns interest if you've got an investor who's going to end up with a greater return than the founder on the upside. It just doesn't make a lot of sense at the early stage. Later stage, Series D, Series E, I can definitely see you're acting more like debt then. Early stage kind of doesn't make sense. So that'd be the first thing I'd always look out for. And there's also a different type of liquidity preference. I recommend true technical, which is non-participating, which is in a lot of term sheets a lot more standard, which says, if the company basically sells at a price less than the money in, then investors get their money back first. That one, I think, is downside protection and is pretty, it's pretty standard. The other ones really, bad terms, I think they're the most one to see. Anything that's really bad is like payments that are like contingent on certain achievement milestones and ability to say, hey, we'll give you $500,000, but you're going to get only $100,000 hits on hitting certain milestones. Like, that's really silly because the one thing I know about a plan when a startup shows me is that it's going to be wrong. Like, maybe it's going to be better or worse, but whatever's in front of you is just going to be wrong. So then trying to base payments around that is ludicrous. So I think that's another one to watch out for, and is pretty non-standard, I'd say.
Yeah, on that one, so we had a company that was in the program, and unfortunately they're no longer in the program because they actually went insolvent. Because that's actually a side issue, but one of the issues they had was they didn't properly manage this idea of tranches. So when the money was coming into from their investors, and they actually weren't fully aware that every time this new investment came in, they were actually owning less and less of their company. And it actually got to a point where the company was no longer something that we could invest in because the founders just didn't own enough of it anymore. And they're not going to stick around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years into the future if it's not theirs. So yeah, you want to fight for ownership.
That's something that you do see from certain angel investors who think they're being clever, but are actually just screwing themselves because the company is going to be worth nothing.
And I really echo that. As a VC, that is something that really concerns us. If I see a company and the founders own 15%, that's almost uninvestable for us. Unless we can negotiate with angels, and sometimes that's very,
there's
very...
not as much skin in the game anymore.
Yeah, it's what's going to happen in 2 rounds of capital, and you own 2%, you decide, these 100-hour weeks just kind of aren't worth it. That's not...
And it's totally real, what we're saying. One of my very good friends, I know he's missed out on deals because he doesn't own enough of his company. It's what? So yeah, it's definitely something to watch out for. The one thing I was just going to add to the term sheet, so as an investor, one of the things that is actually probably the most important thing for us, particularly when we're investing at the early stage, are what are called the pro rata rates. And so what that means is that we can continue to invest in your company at the proportion that we invested in the seed round. So let's say we own 10%, we'd like to continue to own 10% the whole way through. So one of the strategies that we use at Startmate and Blackbird is that we like to invest in lots and lots of companies right at the beginning because you just really don't know which ones are going to work well and which ones aren't. And you're trying to get an understanding of the rate of learning of the founders. So how quickly can they learn new stuff? And by working with them for 6 to 12 months, you get a sense of how they work and how they operate. And then the ones that are doing really well, then you'd love to continue to follow them and support them the whole way through becoming multi-billion-dollar businesses. And as an Australian VC, where we will get outcompeted by our American colleagues, say a Sequoia or Benchmark, one of the other firms I mentioned earlier, for us it's so important to be in there right at the beginning and to work with companies from the ground in Australia and be there to support them literally when they're a PowerPoint deck and a girl and a guy trying to do their life's work. So
the way that you go about that at Blackbird, though, that I know from my term sheet, was that you get discounted rounds.
True.
when you do buy into the startup again in the next round. Often on your term sheet, you'll see that a lot of startups, to be able to continue participating, and especially an Australian venture capital firm that might not necessarily be able to compete with the amount of money that's in a Silicon Valley firm, for example. A way that they structure that in will be having a discounted rate on the subsidiary rounds. The only main thing that I would add that you guys maybe haven't covered from a founder perspective is valuation. So don't opt for too high a valuation. It's actually a lot better to just try to achieve what your valuation really is. Don't get an ego about it and say, okay, I think that we're worth, this is a $16 million idea right now. Well, actually your idea is worth nothing until you execute it. It's a $0 idea. Ideas are not worth anything until you begin executing. But okay, we've executed up to this point. We have, this much of our product built. We have this much of a pre-launch list built. We anticipate having this much growth as of week 1. Therefore, we think that we are worth this much. I've seen so many companies, especially Australian companies, especially US companies, but more frequently, as of late, Australian companies that have gone into their first seed round with hugely inflated valuations, and the only thing that's going to happen is your investors are going to earn more and more of your company. If they say they owned 10% of a $10 million company, when your valuation goes down to $5 million from your actual results that you've achieved through your startup, which is quite frequent, then they own 20% automatically. Is that the way?
If they have liquidation,
depends
they have
on
liquidation.
the way that
normally
you have it structured.
Normally you'd see weighted average anti-dilution. So what that means is roughly if you are worth 5, then your investors become more like 700. No, but I think
it's not always quite that far. Whoa.
Happens.
I think it's also, there's a down round's not the end of the world, but it's an absolute mojo killer. It's like your employees, everyone around you, like there's nothing more deflating. It's a red light to investors who suddenly think, why weren't you able to deliver on what you promised? Is this a sign that the founders, aren't as good as what they should be or aren't able to forecast correctly? I think getting your valuation right, and I want to say, this goes both ends. Getting it too low means you're going to give up way too much of your company and then you end up in the situation where you're uninvestable because you own too little. Getting it too high means that you're going to really disrupt the cadence of raising. I mean, you need to be able to, as a rule of thumb, you at least want to double your valuation every round. I think that's average. So if you are $10 million and, maybe you could raise at 15, but there's absolutely no way possible you can get to a $30 million raise at your next round, like maybe that's not the right valuation, maybe you need to adjust that.
Or maybe you're asking for too much money.
Yeah, and it's simple, yeah.
Because that's another big problem from the founder end. People think that they need more money than they do to grow. So from my point of advice, it would be raise the least that you can. Basically, an investor doesn't want to have to invest again within basically a year, a timeline. So work out the minimum that you're going to need to grow, maintain your team and your product, build your software, whatever you're doing, and then calculate that exactly, and that's the money that you go to your investors with. Investors prefer it, when I first started pitching, I was pitching without knowing how much I wanted to raise, just pitching knowing I wanted to raise. And they'd be like, how much do you want? And I'd be like, how much will you give me? And it wasn't, once I got to Black Belt, I knew not to do that, thank God. And that was another lesson that I learnt as well. I tried raising globally before I tried raising locally, because a lot of founders do go through that mentality, like how Startmate brings their founders over to Silicon Valley in week one, but that's for learning. A lot of founders think, okay, I want to raise money, I'm going straight to the Valley to raise it. I'm going to make these meetings with these investors and we're going to, they're going to love my idea, they're going to love the things that I've done in the past or the expertise that I'm bringing to this industry or my point of difference within my market, and they're going to invest in me and it's going to be great. And you waste a lot of time doing that. I would really opt that, if you're Australian based, go for an Australian investor to begin with, just at least for your seed round or however you're structuring it to begin with. And if you're an American company, go for an American. A lot of investors won't invest in companies outside of their, what's it called?
Yeah, it's changed a little bit, but largely, yes. A US VC fund likes US companies, largely because they're familiar with the legal structures, you like their
at a
companies.
seed stage
Yeah.
especially.
And they like the companies close because, you like to, it's going back to, I think, the original point that, I hope VCs actually do add value and we help them. I know us personally at Rampersand roll up our sleeves and have done everything to helping companies do rebranding, pricing strategy. Yeah, and I know that from...
They're the first people I will call if I'm in tears and something's going wrong. I'm Nikki, help me solve it.
And exactly, and I think having your VCs close to you is also a benefit to you, and them not being so far away they can't do those touch bases.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Although the one thing I would add is, I think you're always going to underestimate exactly how long it's going to take you and exactly how much money you need. So I think putting buffers in, raising takes a hell of a long time. It takes you out of the business, and it takes you out of the business at the exact time that you need that business to be going up and to the right, and you're mainly the person who's driving that revenue growth. So I think making sure you build in buffers, because it will take longer, it will cost more.
Yeah,
so just
most
making sure
companies
you do
raising
that.
don't have a CFO yet or somebody, it's you physically doing it. I don't know, the difference that I was explaining to one of my investors the other night between running a startup every day and going through due diligence is running a startup every day, you want to cry 20% of the day, and going through DD, you want to cry 80% of the day. So, it's a really, it's a taxing time. You're learning a lot of things all at once. You're learning a lot about your company. You're learning all the holes in your company, and you're realizing who, you lose a lot of trust in a lot of people very quickly as soon as you start going down legal avenues and your lawyer is talking to their lawyer and you're racking up costs and you're trying to act
not
as
significant cost.
Well, the one thing I want to say in that process is make sure you ask
I
questions.
think LegalVision did pretty well on my DD actually. in the end.
I think one point I would like to add there, though, is
We
like
are a little abnormal.
making sure you ask questions in the DD process. Like, I've had founders be like, "Oh, that sounds good, but what does that actually mean?" And I don't know. And I know Blackbird's the same. It's like we'll always stop and explain it to you that we're not out there to get you or try and sign you up to something that you don't understand. So please stop, ask if you don't understand what a term means on a term sheet. I mean, I literally have looked at hundreds of them. I know what they mean. Doesn't mean you do. You don't do this all the time. So stop, ask a million questions, getting the right legal advice, asking your lawyers, and making sure that you're 100% comfortable with what you're signing on to. Because once you've signed that document and that money's in the bank, it's pretty hard to reverse.
Yeah.
Because you try to do your learning as a founder as well. Like, you're reading all the resources online and you're like, okay, this is the difference between like a convertible note and like equity funding or whatever else. And you're just like, okay. And then when it gets to the point of actually getting your term sheet and deciding like the structure of it, it feels like you're kind of like answering questions in a test or something. You're just like, hang on, I've read that thing about this, but that's contingent on that, and that's got to do with this. Like, the easiest people to ask are usually your investors. And if you can't ask your investors those type of questions, I don't think they should be your investors, because you don't trust them enough.
And also, obviously, make sure that you have a lawyer, particularly at the beginning, like obviously the whole way through. But we do work with companies sometimes, and they haven't had a lawyer, and so we're like, hey, just get a lawyer, get them to help you read through all the docs. Like, all the stuff we're using is super standard. Like, there's nothing in there that you need to be worried about. Just make sure you've got representation.
Blackbird suggested LegalVision for us as well, which was a big save. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, so that's number one. The other thing that's super important is when you're out raising money, think about your team as well. So the folks that are in the office running the company while you're out there, and make sure that you're actually taking them along for the ride as well. It's emotionally one of the toughest journeys that you're going to have to go through as an individual, as a founder, as a founding group. And if you can take the team along for that ride, that roller coaster ride, by sharing the updates, the good, the bad, and the ugly as well. I think it's really important for the culture that you're building within your organisation, and transparency and these kind of points are particularly important. And maybe your natural sort of bias will be to not talk about it, right? Because it's maybe not going that well,
Well, as a founder, you buffer your team from a lot of the bad things.
Yeah.
You feel as though you need to shoulder that for them. You don't want to put it on them.
Yeah.
You don't want morale to decrease within the office. But there are definitely ways that you can be transparent about it without changing the morale or the atmosphere at work. And that is just being upfront, but not overly emotional.
Yeah.
Right, let's.
They didn't see the 80% tears. I hope. My lawyers, though, your wife actually heard a lot of that 80% of those tears. She was basically like my lawyer and my psychologist in one at the same time. Because she'd be like the only person that I could talk to that truly felt like she was on my side. That's the best part about having the right lawyer. You do honestly feel like finally you have someone, or even a team of people at LegalVision, that are on your side. And that's an incredible feeling. I would not, and I'm not saying this because this is a LegalVision event, I've put this on all different social platforms. The first person that I thanked when I completed my due diligence was my lawyer, Jill. I would not have got through that process emotionally if I didn't have her. As a sole founder, I had nobody else to talk to about some of the decisions that I was trying to make that were in the best interests of the company first, the team second, and then myself third. And that was such a difficult process to have to... A lot of people, of course, it's natural to be selfish, and you realise how selfish people are when you're going through these sort of things. Of course they have their interests at heart, but when you're going through due diligence or another legal process like that, where you need to put the company first as a separate entity to yourself, even though you feel like you are the company, and then put your team's interests and then put yourself, it's a really difficult process. And yeah, I found it hard.
think one point I just wanted to bring up quickly is that Oscar was saying, make sure you get a lawyer. I really can't. Make sure you get
A good lawyer.
And what I say, I mean, don't go and pay like the top tier law firms. Like honestly, I sometimes have found top tier law firms have actually been worse than really good law firms because, like, I don't know, a lot of the mid tier guys and the lower tier guys can actually be really, really good, and they're a lot more involved in you, and you're not going to get kind of pushed down to some junior who doesn't know what they're doing. So like, find a good lawyer though, because maybe you might save a little bit of money in your first round. But I can promise you the amount of times I've had to go and unfortunately rewrite a whole suite of documents and just like it costs so much more the second time if you don't set yourself up right. Means that money you saved, you're just going to have to pay back 20 times in the next round. So
plus, top tier firms are used to dealing with corporates more.
Yeah.
And they're going to give you their corporate strategy. Like, I dealt with a top tier firm for Skinny Me Tea because I thought, okay, we can afford it. Okay, we're making good money. We need to protect what we're doing. We need to, we should go through whoever's the best. And they gave us their corporate strategy. And at the end of the day, with that company, I've done things like I paid $200,000 for a trademark that ended up not standing up in court because it was overly generic. We're selling tea that has detoxifying or weight loss benefits, and so as we're called Skinny Me Tea, that's overly generic. So like it's difficult, and like we've lost a lot of money getting the wrong advice. So often the law firms that do deal more with startups or companies that are at your level, even smaller firms, can be a better option than those big firms that are like, okay, here's what you should do. You should set up a company structure in Singapore, and then you need to have this company called Vistra Services. It's literally it was called Vistra. This Vistra company is going to have a director for you on ground in Singapore. Then you need to create substance in Singapore so that you're like moving all your legal liability around and your tax liability around. And I'm like, that sounds really expensive. And they're like, no, it's something you need to do. So,
you joke, but I've actually seen a company, a startup that's actually had that whole structure.
I'm not joking, I did it.
Singaporean company.
Oh, no. I'm not joking. I moved to Hong Kong for like a year and a half to do that thing and then realised you didn't need to. It's not a joke. Yeah. I'm not joking.
All right,
I am that company.
Let's it's good. All right, let's move on to one thing that we've kind of touched on already, and I think is really important is talk about raising money, but ultimately the best way to grow your business is to just make sales, right? To generate revenue the same way normal businesses do, right?
Investors are your customers.
Yeah, and we have here Gretta with 16 million Instagram followers, and Oscar, who spent most of your career pre-VC in the growth space. So what I think would be really interesting would be for each of you, and Eloise chip in with particular startups that you've invested in that have done this, with some kind of interesting, I guess, growth hacks, or what ways of growing without raising, things you can do in a cost-effective way.
I'm smiling because this is my favourite part. Like, I hate talking about all the I don't hate talking about the legal side because I've had quite good experiences in that, but definitely the regulatory side isn't maybe the most exciting always for me. But what we have been good at is growing. And basically, for me, the easiest way to explain it is there's this big concept, obviously, everybody in this room would have heard of product market fit. For me, I have a semantic problem with the term product market fit because the word product comes before market, which implies you develop your product and then you build your market. I much prefer the term market product fit because it's about creating your audience, finding out kind of what makes them tick, what drives them, what they need, what value you can add to that audience. If your product was if your audience have a question, your product is the answer, basically. So it's creating your audience and building that audience before you build a product. If anybody in this room has, a product idea or a business where they haven't launched yet, I cannot emphasize enough the need to begin building that audience in whatever way you have. So for me, that was Instagram because I found that an easy way to scale my reach. For other people, it might not be social media. Your business might be a lot more relationship driven. It might be B2B, so it might be, like quality over quantity in terms of leads. But definitely for me, I knew how to build a presence on Instagram, so that's where I went. And my audience lived on Instagram because I knew my audience well because they were my demographic. Like, that's why Skinny Me Tea was really easy for me to build at the time because I was my customer. I literally would be like, okay, what are the attributes of my customer? I'd just describe myself. I'd be like, okay, I think I'm into health, but I'm not really. I screw up all the time, but I want like a quick fix, but I don't want something that I have to do all the time. So like created this product, which is Skinny Me Tea is a 14 or 28 day detox program. It's not something you have to do all the time. It's something, a detox is obviously like, it implies the adverse as well, like a retox. So after you have kind of screwed up, you can then go into that product. But basically, like knowing my audience well and developing that audience before building up the product was better for us, like exponentially. And a lot of the companies that I've seen that have been successful in this space have done a really great job of building their waitlist before they've launched. And yeah, that sounds easier said than done. But there's a lot of different ways that you can build a waitlist. For our most recent product launch for Hey Engage, we used virality and word of mouth marketing at scale to build our waitlist. So what we did was, say you have 10 people that you already know want your product. The viral coefficient of those 10 people are it's basically how many people they can bring into your waitlist as well. And so you're using the people that are already there as resources to help you grow your company.
What do they get out of it?
What do they get? Well, it's the basic marketing, like psychology principle of reciprocity. So you need to add value at the same time. So the incentive could be something like a giveaway, and they, win like a year's worth of your product if it's something they really want. Which I would suggest doing for, like, if you're ever going to do a giveaway, only do it with your own product. Otherwise, you're creating like cold leads that aren't even interested in purchasing your product later. So, like, you're not going to give away a GoPro camera and then be like, go buy Skinny Me Tea. It's not the same demographic. Maybe like a bikini or something, that would make sense. It's like products that they would maybe buy alongside your product. But basically, yeah, we leveraged virality. We created a viral waitlist. So what happened was each person joined the waitlist. To move up the waitlist, they had to invite friends, and only the top 1,000 people in the waitlist were going to get a place on the product originally. So it was like a viral leaderboard, and like Google Inbox did that really well as well. They were like, okay, they're only going to be releasing to however many people. To move up the waitlist and get, into that top 1,000, you're currently at, spot number 8,000 or something. To move up to spot number 2,000, you just need to invite 4 friends or something. So that's the way that we built that. If anyone's interested, the tool that we used to build that was called Viral Loops, like viral, like virality, and loops. A viral loop is basically once you get a person into that loop, it's kind of like pirate metrics in a way. Like once you get down to referral, it all starts again with the acquisition. So basically that's the way that we built our waitlist for that particular product, but it all varies. With the fifth, we built our waitlist through influencer marketing. We sent out our product to 30 different influencers within the space. We got 30 samples of the product, and we just used, with influencer marketing, the main thing that you need to be wary of is goal tracking and what that goal is. The 3 main goals in influencer marketing are generally content creation, building a social following, so building your audience on social media, or sales. Because we were pre-launch, sales can get discounted, so we're definitely looking more toward content creation and building our following and our waitlist through that. So always in all of our influencer marketing posts, the call to action was to join the waitlist to get first access to the product. And that concept of newness is that's the best way in launch to leverage your product, because everybody wants to try something first. So leveraging newness to build your waitlist works really well, and it worked really well for the fifth. We launched and we sold out of all of our watches within the first day and a half, and we did $100,000 Australian revenue on our first day of sales. So that was, and the only way that we marketed was through Instagram and through influencers. So that was super powerful for us. So obviously, if it's done right, it can have really powerful results.
Cool. So I just, as Greta was talking, so she's like full bottle on the type of business that she's building. And there's 15 or 20 different types of ways that you can go to market, depending on who you're selling to, what your product is. And so one of the key things that we're thinking about at an organisation like Startmate are who are the people like Greta that we can, so Greta as the mentor, so when we're trying to connect her with one of our startup founders or a bunch of our startup founders that have similar businesses, that are trying to do similar things.
I was emailing one of them today, actually.
There you go. And they're like 1 or 2 years, maybe it's really just so she's been doing it for a while, trying to make that connection. Because there's so much information and knowledge and experience, but it's very specific to your situation. So if you're like a B2B pharmaceutical company, you need help in how you sell into the pharmaceutical industry, which can take, have a sales cycle of sort of upwards of 18 months. It's a very different domain. And so when you're thinking about your business and you're growing it out, make sure that the people that are around you have that actually genuinely tactical experience that's 1 or 2 years in front of where you are. And they're also genuinely good at what they do. And so, when people talk about getting mentors, to me, that's how it really becomes very practical. And so I think that's really important, irrespective of what stage you're at with your business, what type of business you've got, and you can learn from people that really know what they're doing.
Or entering into a mastermind is another way, rather than just mentorship. Would be maybe a group of 5 people that are doing something similar to you, that you can have, a monthly or a weekly catch up. There are a lot of different platforms that facilitate them. I know the League of Extraordinary Women, for example, if you're a female entrepreneur, Cheryl's developed this awesome concept that's Find Your 5, and basically that the 5 people that you spend the most time with, you're a product of that time. There was just a blackout thing for the people watching on Facebook that think I just lost the plot. So basically it's finding those 5 people that you can then lean on. And so you might do that through an organisation, you might do that through your investor, but definitely surrounding yourself with the type of people that you need to learn from and grow from is really helpful.
I really want to, echo Oscar's point there is when you're looking for a mentor, they don't need to be someone who's done it and has this huge multi-billion-dollar company. And they're fantastic mentors, but if they did that 10 years ago, they're kind of irrelevant now, and they probably forgot. Humans have this great ability to only remember certain things, especially backwards. You kind of rewrite your own history. So find someone who, if you're raising Series A, find someone who just closed their Series A. They're probably going to be the best person to give you advice.
Yeah, with the same investor as well.
Just conscious of time, we've got 10 minutes left, so why don't we get some questions? I think there's a microphone somewhere.
Well, lucky you barely got to chat.
I'm facilitating. Let's just stick up your hand if you've got a question. There have to be questions. Here we go.
It was too easy not to. Just a really quick one, Eloise. You were mentioning about the buffer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a kind of framework which would help people to work out what that buffer should be?
I'll give you mine on that. I've raised 3 rounds for LegalVision, and I always work out how much money I think we need, and then I double it.
I was about to say this. Really good rule of thumb we normally say is it's okay, you need to run X amount, 2 or 3 experiments to get certain revenue. What's that going to take for 18 months? Double that number, and it's probably about right.
Yeah, which Gretta would disagree with, but it's proven correct in that the last 2 times we've raised, we've had $200 left in the bank account, so it was necessary.
I think it's a balance again. It's how much equity you're giving away and what valuation you get, but yeah, definitely double it. Or
I wish I'd done that. Thank you.
Another question? Down the front here.
Thank you for all the great information, first of all. Now, we talked about companies and startups in their seeding phase. So what would be the one piece of advice that you would give companies in the seeding phase either starting up or looking for investment?
One piece of advice to an early stage technology company? Is that like the question you're about? I don't know, I'm really into psychology, and so it'd be to like sort of have a pretty deep, reflective think about why the hell you're doing what you're doing, because it's really hard, and
It's horrible.
the chances of your success, and so just make sure that you're really tapped into something that you're really fucking into, because like the like one of the best advantages that you can actually get is to be working on stuff that you like, that is just so deep. It's like so just really deep and part of your, what you want to be and your identity, and sort of, we use this expression, it's part of your life's work. And the reason I actually think that this advice is good is that it helps you get this really interesting strategic advantage if you're working on stuff that is really you, because there's no one else out there that's really like that. And so, on the weekend when you've got time, you're going to be reading that extra stuff when other people are like, doing the other stuff that they're into. And it's just like, that has a compounding effect. And so, yeah, that would be my one piece of advice.
And working on, what you love every day. Like some days I finish the day and I feel really guilty because I feel like I haven't done any work yet that day. And then I realise I did things all day. I was just loving what I was doing. And that's a good day. There are obviously bad times throughout that too, and there are stressful things that happen throughout the day that you need to deal with that aren't what you enjoy doing, which is where LegalVision come in, thank God. But I mean, yeah, that, like as a founder, I can completely identify with that advice. So I think that was pretty spot on.
Yeah, there's a guy called Zach Klein who I'm really into. He has a book called Cabin Porn. He's also a really successful startup founder. He started Vimeo in the US, and now he's got a new thing called DIY.org. And just like the way that he thinks about his businesses and what he wants to build and what he wants to grow is really exceptional, I think. And he's got some really interesting stuff online. So Zach Klein, he's a good runner as well.
Another question?
My question's really for the investors here. I was just thinking, you sort of touched on it today, where you said that one of the reasons why you can't invest in successful businesses is because they don't own enough equity. I was wondering if there's other things where you've been presented with a really good idea, you want to invest, but the way it's been presented to you, you can't invest.
There we go. I mean, there's lots, but I mean, the one that really jumps out at us is always the relationship, like the relationships between the people that are doing the business. So the idea can be incredible, the economics can look really strong, but you're just like, wow, we're really not sure about the strength of this working relationship. And like when we actually look across the portfolio of Startmate companies, the number one reason that they fail is because of a founder breakup or something that goes wrong with the team. So that would be it, I'd say.
That's why I prefer being a sole founder.
and actually, this is actually an important one. I don't think we've actually touched on this yet, but make sure right at the beginning that you put in a vesting schedule. So we haven't, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's essentially just that over a 4-year period, you earn your ownership of your company alongside your founder. The one place where you don't need that is if it's just you, because there's no, the only person you can break up with is yourself. But if there's two of you or more, definitely have founder vesting in place.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I
That's really helpful. An ESOP, it's called. Like you can do that through an ESOP. We did it through a different way, but through our shareholders agreement. But you can also have, obviously, putting in an ESOP is a really good way to
It's an option,
reward.
employee share option plan.
Yeah, I think I want to, Oscar, I think the only time I can think other than low ownership's been a time when there's been a really good structure where like one founder owns like 80% and the other one owns 10%, and it's like, I don't think that founders realise it's getting screwed over here and this is just going to blow up horrendously.
Yep.
Or for us also, we really care about who we co-invest with. So if you have someone on your register who's really destructive, that's the only other thing that we won't invest in that can blow it up for us, because the last thing a startup needs is some investor who comes in and dominates the board and gives terrible advice, and you end up with people fighting on your board, because there's nothing more destructive than that. So we
Rampersand and Blackburn co-invested before.
we have limits.
Other question?
Yep. So the question could be a bit weird, but
I like weird.
when will you draw the line and get out of your home, right? You go by yourself and start trusting people and talk to people about your idea. I understand it's very important to socialize and talk to people around your idea, but when will you trust doing that?
Day one.
Day one.
As soon as you have it.
How will you can't guarantee anything, but what if this idea is stolen totally and someone of them did it? Even better than you.
I think my first bit of advice here is ideas don't make money, people do. So you can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't execute on it, it kind of doesn't matter. And the best thing you can do is go and talk to people about your idea, ask them to poke holes in it, get feedback. You need to believe, and I think this goes back to what Oscar was saying before, if you honestly really love what you're doing and you believe that this is your life's work, and you're that person who's best placed to do it, it shouldn't matter if someone else finds it out, because they're just not going to do it as well as you do. And if you don't honestly believe that you're the best person, best place to do it, because you'll always have competitors. If you're successful, year two, someone else will be doing exactly what you're doing and will be able to catch up to you, unless you honestly do have that competitive advantage and you believe that you are that much better and you have that passion.
Agree 100%.
Right, I think we've got one last question, maybe down the front.
Hi, I was wondering whether there are any helpful signs about when we should stop bootstrapping with a cash flow positive business and start raising money. I know that obviously you don't want to give up equity, but then there are times when people are on your heels. I'm just wondering if there are some tips around when you should get an injection.
Yeah, I think the way I think about it is look 6 to 12 months, 18 months into the future, and if you've got an interesting plan for growth, that means that you need to take on capital to hire people most likely, and you like that strategy and you want to go on that path, because it's a different path. As soon as you take investment, it's a very different type of company, and if that's what you want to do, and you've got.
Can I make it a little bit more specific to my situation?
Let's do it.
So I'm building a platform for an existing agency business, so still sort of making money, been making money for a while. So the money that we need is to scale that business, but also it does become then a tech business. So we do have money that is building that, and think both of these things being done in conjunction, but I'm just not sure when to stop and just go. So obviously we're going to need a lot more money.
I reckon the best thing to do, let's talk after, and I can get all the detail, and then we can go deep. I love it.
From a psychological perspective, as a founder as well, I totally get where you're coming from. You don't want to give up equity in your company, but the best way that I've had it described to me was, I'd rather own 30% of Snapchat than 100% of Snapshit.
On that note, thank you very much to our panel.